Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dream, Declare, Deliver with myself, Kris, and my wonderful co-author and great friend, Candace Sogren. And today we're talking about one of the most powerful and yet difficult things in the world to do, and that's forgiveness. It's a deep subject. It's something that we practice and that we look to aspire to as a higher state of being, really, because it takes so much out of us. So we're going to talk a little bit about what forgiveness isn't and what forgiveness is, some examples of how that works in life, and maybe even if we have some time, we'll talk about a couple exercises that you might be able to do. So let's kick it off. Why is forgiveness so hard?
Well, it's interesting, Kris, and we chose this topic today because it's been really hard for me. I think one of the things that Kris and I often do when we come together for these episodes is we talk about like what is heavy on our heart right now, and what is actively impacting our lives right now. And forgiveness it keeps coming up for me over and over and over again, because I've been really, really angry for the past few weeks. And so I think before we get into why I've been really angry and why forgiveness is so important, I think it's important to talk about what is forgiveness, and I can just speak from personal experience. Right now, that forgiveness is an active practice of letting go, and like letting go. And right now I feel like I've been like white knuckling my life, like on the steering wheel of life, and losing control of the car. Forgiveness, letting go of the wheel.
Not so that the car wrecks or anything like that, but really letting go of that white knuckle controller. Because part of forgiveness is recognizing that we don't have a lot of control over other people. They do their own lives, and they, screw up, and they, go wherever they go. And a lot of times the things that I get angry about are when people don't perform according to my rules, or according to my expectations, let's say it that way, of what I expect them to do, or I expect any decent person to do, or something like that. And so when those expectations get violated, I caught anger. I jump to that place there where I want to blame them. I want to make it their fault. And for me, the way I characterize, that resentment is that it's a bad tenant that's taking up space, renting space in my brain. And it's time to evict the tenant and deal with it. That's.
Yeah, I think it's important, Kris, though, to talk about why the tenant's there in the first place. So, like before we can talk about forgiveness, let's talk about anger and resentment. And in my own personal experience, I've been harboring quite a bit of anger and resentment over the course of the last few weeks. And one, it makes somebody else wrong. Anger makes somebody else at fault. If this needs, whatever this is, if this needs to be somebody's fault, it's not mine, it's somebody else's.
Right.
The other thing that it's been doing for me, this whole anger and resentment thing, is the payoff that I've been getting for holding so much anger and resentment towards another person is that I get to be the victim. I get to feel sorry for myself. And in many instances right now, I get to have other people feel sorry for me. Right. And so that pity is, you can become addicted to it. So oftentimes pity or poor baby is accompanying anger and resentment. And so you first get to recognize, oh, wow, I'm sitting in a lot of anger and resentment before you can get to the point of, okay, it's time for me to forgive.
Right. That's a really great point to say that I'm, that there's something I'm getting out of holding on to this resentment and enrolling other people into my resentment and my pity party, my poor baby, and recognizing that that's not how somebody who lives from accountability and responsibility and source, that's not how I choose to live my life. So when I find myself there, I mean, the red flag that goes up for me is when I recognize is like, oh, I'm doing that for me. I'm doing that so that I get this, oh, poor baby, kind of response from people. Instead of taking the more responsible route of saying, why am I holding on to the anger? What is it that I resent about what that person did? And that's the hard part.
Yeah. And at the same time, like the same time that I'm getting this, pity or support of what it looks like support for me, and becoming addicted to it. The same time, whoever I'm angry with, I'm giving them a lot of power.
Yes.
The more and more angry that I get at someone else, the more power they have over me. And just the anger alone is just saying, here, take all of my power, take all of my faculty, take all of my my charisma, take all of my happiness. Just go ahead and take it. And so I think it's important to say, okay, I'm getting something from this, but wow, I'm giving a lot away.
Yeah.
A lot away when I'm angry and resentful.
Yeah. And you lose agency, over your own life. Yeah.
And so I think, before we can say, okay, let's forgive somebody. I think it might be helpful just to talk through what I've been angry at. And I've called you many times for coaching about this, Kris, as well as others. And we've alluded to this over the course of a couple of episodes, but a very dear friend of ours was murdered. She was murdered by her husband, who is also a very dear friend of ours. And they have 3 children that are all under the age of 6. And this has just been heartbreaking for Kris and me over the past few months. At the same time that all this has been happening, my family has been very actively involved. We've been, trying to support in every way we can, including applying for emergency foster. And over the course of the last several weeks, we lost. We weren't selected, and we felt that was a very wrong decision for a number of reasons. The reason that this is coming up is I'm really, really mad at the husband, the one who with intent or not, took the life of his wife. And I've been harboring so much anger. As a result of that anger, I've been spinning out of control, spinning out. So we've had 2 nannies quit over the past few weeks. I've had, my job is on the line right now. I've had some really tense conversations with my boss. My husband and I are at odds right now. Like it's spun out of control. Right. And so there's just so much anger and resentment and helplessness that's associated with this. Now, I only share this because I wanted to give it a face of what this forgiveness practice is all about. And I think it's important, Kris, that we talk about what forgiveness is not. Because
and just I want to acknowledge what you're saying first before we go there, because what you're demonstrating is how, when we don't forgive, when we copper resentment, we get angry at another person, especially something of this gravity, how impactful that is, not just on us, but on everybody around us. Your whole system got into a spin because, it was tearing you up inside. That level of honesty just, it touches me. So let's talk about this forgiveness thing. What is it not? First and foremost it's not accepting or acquitting the person for anything they did. It's not pretending that didn't happen. There's a truth of the experience. We all have our own interpretations of truth, but there's a truth of the experience there were some things that happened, whatever that was, and how that impacted me or how it impacted you, as close to this family, was on so many different levels, just impacted all of us. Probably you more than even me. So I don't want to let that person off the hook with my forgiveness. That's not what it's about for me.
Yeah, it's not I'm not the judge and jury here, and I'm not just choosing innocence or guilt.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am recognizing is the amount of power that I've given away to someone that I'm angry. Now, rightfully, I think anyone who I talk to about this doesn't judge me or think I'm wrong for being angry. Mm-hmm. I just recognize how little power I have over my life right now.
Right.
And I'm either addicted to my anger, or I'm addicted to my sadness, or I'm addicted to something. But I'm addicted to something because I recognize that my life is not working. My life is not working. So it's not making it okay what happened in the situation, but it is saying, I'm no longer going to give power to this person or the situation. And I'm going to step back into my life. Yeah. The next thing that it's not amnesia. So this isn't forgetting.
Yeah, it's not forgive and forget,
Yeah, and there's no such thing. There's no such thing as forgetting. And in fact, forgiveness by its nature requires that you remember.
Right.
It requires that you are making a conscious decision to remember what happened and to choose the path of forgiveness anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was visiting the cathedral in Paris, and I'm blanking on Notre Dame Cathedral, and on the back side of the island is a memorial to the Holocaust. And you walk down a set of stairs between two grindstones that are just about shoulder width. And right above the door, it says, "N'oubliez pas," don't forget, never forget. So, we talk with people who've gone through that, or whose families have gone through that. And it's important for us to keep that forefront in memory, but not to give it agency over us, And so, I think the separation that you're talking about is powerful, because you're recognizing how much you've given away your agency, your power to this event and to that other person. And so I don't want to forget it. It's in my heart. It's too close, but I do want to take my power back and own my life over that.
Yeah, I think one other thing that's coming up for me is what forgiveness is not. Is it's not an achievement. So it's not like a gift that I'm giving to someone else, or an award that has to be deserved or earned. And in fact, in most instances, forgiveness is not earned. There's something we talk about in the book, Kris, is about when I called my dad after all these years, and I wanted to let him know that I forgave him. And he said, "Well, I forgive you too." He had been abusive when I was a child and other things. And I finally, at the age of 35, called him to forgive him. And I felt like it was something that he had to earn, because when he came back and said, "Well, I forgive you too," I was so upset. And my husband said, "Are you calling to forgive him? Or are you calling to hear him say he's sorry?" And forgiveness is the opposite of looking for "I'm sorry."
Yes. Yeah.
And oftentimes "I'm sorry" won't come, and it shouldn't have to. It doesn't require someone to be in remorse.
Right. And in this case here, I'm never going to expect an "I'm sorry" from that person, from the husband. It's just not. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't want to hear it.
It wouldn't be sufficient if we heard it anyway.
Exactly. It would not even touch. There's no way that "I'm sorry" would heal that wound. But what I do want to do is let go of the control it has over me, and heal that in me. So what forgiveness maybe is a self-healing. It's and
I think it's an important point that you bring up, Kris, is that forgiveness literally has very little to do with the other person. It's an inside job. So much of this that we talk about on this podcast is an inside job, but it doesn't really have anything to do with someone else. It has to do with my ability to heal whatever pain I'm sitting in that's tied to the act. And the final thing I'll mention of what it's not, and we can talk about what it is and how it's applied, is it's not understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, like the need to understand actually blocks you from the ability to forgive.
Right.
They're almost antithesis of one another. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, I in so many things that happen like this, where we're, just, twisted in a knot about it, there is no sense making. There's no sense in this. It's beyond comprehension. And so why would I look to understand what his motives were? Why would I want to understand? That's about me, and when I let go of the need to understand or make sense out of it, then it gives me the power to do with my anger, my upset, my pain. It gives me power to do something with my pain and to begin to heal my pain. And like I said, that's all inside work. This is so much of what we talk about in Dream, Declare, Deliver, or in Typhoon Honey, is about taking agency and taking control of your life and doing things by choice as opposed to through knee-jerk reactions. My emotional reactions sometimes are righteous reactions because of what I believe to be the rules of society and the rules of friendship and things like that. And when I recognize that that's my belief system, then I can go and look at that and I can do something about it. So in your mind, because this is so difficult to wrap our heads around, what do you think forgiveness should be or could be for you?
Oh man. There's what we write about and there's what we teach and there's what I'm living.
Why we live.
They're two different things right now. I'll tell you in my process, and then I'll give you an actual example. But in my process, part of this has been recognizing where I'm still responsible. Where I'm still responsible for, I mentioned that my whole world was in disarray for the past few weeks. And that's not all because of this person. That's because of decisions I've been making that have caused a disarray in my life. Whether that's at work or with my nannies or with my husband, I'm choosing to add stress in all of my other environments. I'm choosing to do that. And so I think part of it for me is it's ownership, that like my whole world is not falling apart because one person did something to someone else and I'm involved. My world is my world. And I am creating my world. So part of forgiveness is just kind of taking that ownership back. Yeah. Like that actually doesn't belong to you. And like that actually belongs to me. And so that's part of it. Yeah.
And at the same time, it's not stepping over the feelings that you have, the emotions that you have. Those are so powerful. And they're legit emotions. I mean, they come from love, they come from caring, they come from relationship, and in no way are we saying, that we should feel good or okay about a person's death or some whatever else has happened around you. That's not the point. The point is that when we allow ourselves to have our, agency again, I call it, when we have our power back, then I choose to grieve. And I can grieve, and grief is, it's a lake, and you have to drink the whole freaking lake. And you can either drink it all at one time or you can drink it a sip at a time over, 1,000 years, but you're going to have to drink the whole lake. There's something, it's not something you get over. It's something you live within. And so but when I take agency, when I take control back in my life, then I say, I can grieve, I can deal with this, and I know where my feelings are coming from. So part of just, the forgiveness process is allowing myself to grieve properly, instead of getting it all, covered over with that anger, which is just an emotion to a lot of times to protect ourselves from the pain that we really feel. So when I let go of that anger, I'm able to deal with my pain. So I think that, that's one of the first parts of forgiveness is allowing myself that grace to feel.
I think another piece of it for me too is something that we often say when we're coaching people, Kris, is that we're perfect mirrors. And, that you and I are perfect mirrors of one another.
I hate that.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
But every human in my life, every interaction in my life is a mirror back to me about what I'm projecting into the world. And so, so if I'm looking at every human in my world as a perfect mirror, I get to look at this person. I get to look at him as a mirror too. And so I was in court last week, and we were losing custody. And the judge asked me, like, what do you think about this? And this person was in the room facing me. Like we were looking at each other. And I said, what do you think about all of this? And I was able to look him in the eye and say, I have to imagine that this was a horrible accident. I have to imagine that things went horribly wrong. But I see you still as a human. And I know that you probably don't feel like you have anyone in your corner. And I just want you to know that you're loved. And it doesn't mean I'm okay with anything that happened, particularly in that court experience, because it was very tense. And it was, but I just saw this human in front of me that just looked so scared and alone. And I just felt compassion. And that's when I knew, okay, I'm able to do this. I'm able to move down this path of forgiveness with this person, because I'm able to see myself still.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
And so I think that brings us to the final piece of this, which is forgiveness is not always just about another person. And in fact, the most important element of forgiveness is forgiving yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That reflection piece, is, like I said, I jokingly said I hate it, but it's the hardest jagged pill to swallow, because what I get angry about in another person is what I don't want to see in myself. It's my shadow, and so reaching inside and cradling that anger and forgiving the part of me that's reflected there, starts that healing process. I won't forget, but I can let go of giving my power to somebody else and take back my power to choose to grieve on my own terms, to choose to live my life and move forward with my life, to let go of the attachment that I have to the anger, resentment, that I've built up about this person, and that's different from excusing it. Letting go of the attachment to it is like you were saying before, there's something you get out of that, you get the pity party, you get the strokes or whatever from your immediate surrounding, friends and lovers, who don't want to see us suffer, And so we do get some positive stuff out of that, but letting go of that is letting go of the attachment to the anger and the attachment to the resentment, also allows me to let go of the need to get, the pity party, and the reinforcement, the negative kind of reinforcement that I get from holding on to it. It's a squirrely, complicated, twisted up plate of spaghetti to unwind, when we're talking about forgiveness. But I think the hardest part and the most essential part is what you said, is like forgiving yourself first, not for trusting somebody. You're not forgiving yourself for loving or for having compassion. You're not forgiving yourself for that. What are you forgiving yourself for?
Yeah, I think
Put you on the spot.
I think one thing for me is that, as I sat there on the stand, essentially as a defendant in that particular situation, being interrogated as if I were a criminal, sitting across from a criminal. Not only was I able to feel compassion for him, but I was able to see all of the dark sides of me in him. Like, I was able to see how similar we are and where we share dark sides, and where I continue to make missteps, and the dark sides of me. And then I feel like I brought that home, to my husband and my son. And I'm like, they just got the dark sides of me. And so that's where I'm doing some self-forgiveness right now, is it brought up a bunch of stuff, like all of the times that I've ever been so angry with myself all came into sharp focus over the last few weeks. And it's like they all just got flushed up again. And so I've just been really, really angry with me. And so that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what's been coming up.
Yeah.
And so I think what I'd like to do is give everybody who's listening an opportunity to just go through this yourself, have an experience yourself, take a moment and journal about 2 or 3 people or situations that you're angry with. Like, get it down on paper, pour your heart onto it. All the reasons you're angry, give yourself a poor pity party, a poor baby pity party. And then for a moment, look at how you're similar. How are you similar to those people or to these situations? How does this bring up the worst in you? Because then you're able to see, wow, there's 2 sides to this forgiveness exercise.
Yeah, that reflection part. How does it serve as a mirror into those parts of me that I really don't want to admit that I still have, or that are parts of me? Like you said, it brought it into sharp focus. I sit here and I look at somebody who's, going to go through, a horrible trial and conviction, and, whatever else is going to happen, I don't know. But I think, oh, I'm so righteous. I wouldn't do that. But when something like this happens and we get that, sharply focused mirror back and say, like, there, but for the grace of God, go I, there are parts of my past that I don't want to admit, that I don't want to see the light of day. I want to take to the grave with me, and I get to heal those, and I get to let go of those. And so my self-forgiveness is called into play. I don't want to leave this without first acknowledging you for the rawness that you bring to this session today. I mean, this has really been hard for everybody involved, but it's really been hard for you, and for you to be able to, sit here and describe how you're willing to let that loose and take your life back. That's hard and commendable. And I love you for the way you live this work. It may take me a couple of days or weeks or something to get to the point where I'm back on living my, what we write about and what we teach, because sometimes I fall into the deep old pit too. And we were just talking before we started this call that, I had a couple of days of just really suck hole. I just was in the pity party suck hole of like, who gives a damn about this, what I'm talking about, what I'm writing about, what I'm doing. And it takes a while, sometimes I just have to just like be there and be frumpy with it. And then, like, okay, so who's it serving? It's not serving me. It's not serving the people I love. And so I get to let go of it. And
what I'll say too, and as we wrap this conversation, is that these tools that Kris and I are talking about, when you practice them in life, it makes such a dramatic difference in your life. Andrew and I, after the hearing was over, were talking about our experience because we both had to be in on the stand and defend ourselves. And he said, imagine how this whole experience would have felt 4 years ago before we had this.
Yeah.
He said, I can't imagine making it through this without the tools of transformation and emotional intelligence. And I am so incredibly grateful for having learned the skill of forgiveness. And it's a practice. And I'm not, there's no other side of this. There's not like one day I'm going to wake up and be like, I'm cured, but it is a conscious decision every day. And it's a practice.
Yeah, it's what we call living life by choice, and every moment is a choice that we can do that. So the last part of journaling about some resentments that you have is, once you've gotten down what you resented or what you were angry about, and what the reflection is for you, the last piece might be to turn it around and say, how might this have been different had I not set up that expectation? How might it have been different if I had maintained my agency and my choice? How might it have been different if I trusted me in this situation?
And the final step of this is to at least spend a paragraph, if not several pages, writing down how you forgive yourself and what you forgive yourself for. That is such a powerful experience, to just forgive yourself and write it down on paper. So we trust that you know where to go with this, and we're excited to see what you do with this tool. Right.
So thank you for joining us on today's episode. It's a heavy topic, and we wish you well. So dream, declare, deliver, and keep on. Thank you. Until next time.